today's activity. Yes, Alan, I see you recording. Great. So today, well, let's start where we come from and where we've gotten to, expectations, at least as far as right now. Friday, the main point of Friday was for us to think very critically about the kinds of problems that we want to solve. Again, it's super easy for innovators to get stuck into the solution. That's kind of the fun part. Nobody likes to dwell on the problem. So, innovators are natural problem solvers. But without knowing enough about the problem, there may be a big mismatch between what you think is the solution and what would actually be effective as a solution. And with all of these issues that we want to deal with, all of the really difficult challenges in the world, they are what's called complex problems. Complex is not, I don't mean it in a conventional way. When I talk about complex problems, in science, we refer to them as wicked problems. And what that means is it's a problem that changes over time, and it changes in response to the elements within the problem. So it's not as if you can take and just draw a line around the problem and then solve it like an equation. You have to look at it as a whole and as a dynamic and evolving whole. And you have to look at it as something that's non-linear. That means you're not going to be able to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to solve the problem. We have to think more non-linear. And that's what innovation is all about. We have to think in terms of what kind of problem do we want to solve? What sort of solutions might work? What do our stakeholders think about those solutions? And then revisit the problem again. And you do this cycle over and over and over again. It's an agile project management or agile methodology, if you've ever used agile methods in your technology development. But basically, it's nonlinear, it's very cyclical, and we go back and forth between problem, solution, and understanding. And that's the stakeholder part of it, understanding what exactly the problem is and how our solutions can actually contribute to solving that problem. So it's really, really, really critical that we don't just jump into the problem-solving aspects, that we spend that time we spent on Friday really critically thinking about the problem. And then I gave you the task over the weekend to start validating that problem. And you can validate that in a number of different ways. We went through, I think, 9 of them, everything from having interviews and focus groups with people who are in this, who are your potential customers or potential stakeholders, all the way up to doing an academic literature review of the science that's out, that's been published on the topic, to doing a report on industry research and a report on any kind of government or nonprofit or industry led research that might be relevant. So we're going to move now today. We should have been spending at least 3 days then on the problem. We're going to now move into the solution. So that's a pretty good ratio in my book of spending time on problems versus solutions. But before we go to that, I want us to think more critically about the people that are relevant for our problem. Who does the problem affect? So we have to ask ourselves, who has a stake, who has an interest, who benefits, but who also is important for putting our solution into practice. So I want us to think really critically about the human beings that are involved. One of the things we talked about on Friday, and I'm going to pick on one of the groups here, one of the things we talked about on Friday was, we wanted to create smart contracts for importing goods. Okay, what is your problem exactly? Is the problem a corruption issue? Is the problem I don't know, an efficiency problem? Can we make a more efficient process by implementing smart contracts, blockchain contracts? Those are the kind of questions I think you should have been asking on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now we're going to ask who is affected by this problem. So in the case of smart contracts and importing, it may be the importers, certainly. It may be any government agencies involved in customs and tolls. It may be the ultimate companies that buy those products, the companies that actually, now that they've been imported, who is going to be purchasing those products? Because they're the ones who are going to actually might benefit from those products being traced and traceable and being the process being more transparent. So think about who those individuals are, those individuals and groups that might be affected by the problem that you're trying to solve. And I'm going to give you first an individual assignment. This is a 5-minute assignment, so it's going to happen super, super fast. I want you to either draw a picture. You can use pen and paper. You can use your computer, whatever you want. But I want you to be visual. I want you to get out of your heads and into a drawing, into a picture. You can also Google and find a picture online. I'd rather you draw it than find a Google picture. But I need you to either find a picture online or draw a picture that shows your problem, that demonstrates, that's like a visualization. That's a way of the showcasing your problem. And the picture has to contain at least 2 people, okay? So think about your problem, draw a picture or find a picture online. It has to contain at least 2 people. The whole picture, the visualization, the drawing has to exemplify your problem. Is that clear? Can I get a shout out in the chat? Can I get somebody to unmute their microphone and say, yes, Anthony, we are 100% on the same page. Alan says thumbs up, but I need more than Alan here. All right, Nyakio says thumbs up, great. I'm happy for that. Thank you guys for the input. We're gonna do this again individually. I'm putting 5 minutes on the timer. I'm gonna put in the chat what you're supposed to do. So draw a picture or find one online of your problem. It must contain at least 2 people. Boom. 5 minutes on the timer. Boom. That's 15 minutes. All right. So now you should have a good visualization of your problem. You should have something that you can look at and say, this is my problem. These are some of the people that are involved, that have a stake in my problem. Next piece that we're going to do is, so these are your stakeholders. These are the people we care about. These are either your beneficiaries or someone that has a really clear connection to the problem you're trying to solve. Now we're going to put you in groups. I want you to share those pictures with each other and explain why you think this picture shows that problem area well. You can explain it to your best of your ability, just explain where you got it or what you think it's showing, and then explain the different groups of people that you are involved in the picture and how you think they relate to the problem. If I remember correctly, there was only a few groups, and I don't think we have so many today as we did on Friday. So can I get like maybe a shout out? Who was in group 1? I think maybe group 1 isn't even here. Isaiah, you were in group 1. Is your teammate here? No, they're not. It was just you, wasn't it? Isaiah, do you have your teammate from Friday? Not here yet. Okay, fine. Group 2, is anybody from group 2 in the room? Group 2, anybody?
Yeah.
Great. Dennis, thank you. Dennis, is your group partner here?
No, unfortunately, Eliud is not here.
Okay, that's all right. Group 3, is anybody from group 3 here?
Yeah, here, but team members are not yet here.
Okay, and team 4, is that you, Victoria? Victoria, I can't quite hear you. It's so nice to hear your voices, though. Victoria, I'm not sure what the... Oh, there you are. Say again.
Yeah, I'm in group 2, but our teammate is not here yet.
Okay, but you're with Dennis in group 2 at least. Dennis, is that right? Are you and Victoria in a group together?
Yes, we were in a group together.
Okay, great. Well, then here's what I want to do, because I want to get you guys working together a little bit. I'm going to open 2 breakout rooms. Dennis, I want you and Victoria to join room 2. And Isaiah, I want you and Nyakio to join room 1. And you're going to do the same exercise because you're still going to explain the picture that you picked and how that kind of showcases your problem. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
I'll give you a little bit more than 5 minutes. It says 10 minutes on the slide, but I think I'm just going to give you 5 minutes. I don't think it'll take you that long. Either share your screen with each other or kind of describe it to the person. just so that they get a clear understanding for what your picture shows and who's in that picture that you think, again, embodies your problem the best. So that's room 2 for Victoria and Dennis, and then Isaiah and Nyakio, room 1, please. If you have any questions, please just throw them in the chat or just ask, please, please, please. It's a small group, so we don't have to stand on ceremony. All right, folks, let's jump right back in here. Storytelling is a really important part of what we do as innovators, because it's the story behind our solutions. It's the story behind ourselves that is what draws people to your work. It's what makes people care about what you're doing. It's what makes people interested in the kinds of ideas that you're bringing forward. Storytelling is absolutely critical for communicating the ways in which your solutions can create value, the ways in which your solutions have meaning for the people whose lives can stand to benefit from those solutions. So being able to put clearly and succinctly into a few words somebody's story is really, really, really important. I say 5-word stories here because I mean this literally. There's a story, there's a rumor, I guess, that goes that the famous author Ernest Hemingway was challenged by one of his friends in a bar one night. And his friend said, "I bet you can't come up with a story in 5 words or less." Actually, that's 6 words. Okay, so we'll say 6-word stories. "I bet you can't come up with a story in 6 words or less." And so Ernest Hemingway sat and thought for a little while. He got out a napkin from the bar, and he wrote these 6 words down on the napkin: baby shoes, for sale, never worn. And I want to point out here that they're so evocative, the entire phrase together, because it shows not only where we are now, but where we've come from. So clearly there was a child was born. Clearly the parents cared enough about them to buy them shoes, but something must have happened that means the child no longer needs those shoes. So it provokes the idea of what happened. Right. So this is a really, really great example of how to write a story in 6 words. Now I'm going to challenge you to write a 6-word story about the people that are in that picture. So I want you to look at that picture again and think about the people's lives that are experiencing the problem, the challenge that they're facing. And I want you to write, it says 5 words, but I'll give you 6 words if you need 6 words. Write a 6-word story that describes their experience. Make sure that it has the feeling of a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's not, I want to be very, very clear here, it's not just a set of keywords. It's not just, let's go back to the smart contracts one. It's not just blockchain, smart contracts, import duties. That's just a set of keywords. What I want you to do is tell a story with 6 words. See how well you can do. I would love to hear them afterwards. If you can come up with a good one, I want you to put it in the chat. It's a hard task, so I want you to take 10 minutes to do that. So pick 1 or 2 of the people that are in that picture and write a 6-word story about their experience of the problem. I'll write in the chat the instructions so you have that individually. Remember, this is anchored in the problem. So what is their experience of the problem? I'm going to give you 10 minutes starting now. Good luck. All right, we'll give everybody a couple more seconds to get back into the main room, and then we're going to continue on the next exercise. All right, folks, welcome back. I hope you had a chance to exchange your stories. For those folks who just joined, who joined in the last activity or two, what we're working on today is understanding a little bit more about the people whose lives are connected to the problem that we're trying to solve. So there's individuals, groups, organizations that are connected to the different challenges that we want to work with. And those individuals have a very specific and important stake in what we're trying to do in solving that problem. So you could think of them as customers. That's kind of one way of thinking of a stakeholder. You could also think of them as beneficiaries. So who's benefiting from the innovation? You could also think of them just generally as stakeholders, anybody that might have an interest in the kind of work that we're trying to do. The next stage is going to be focusing in on more of a solution aspect. So I want you individually to finish this phrase. I imagine that my stakeholder needs a way to fill in that, in a way that makes them feel, fill in that, because, and fill in that. I want you to try to do this for at least one stakeholder. I would say try to do it even for two stakeholders. I think there's a lot of value in thinking of as many different stakeholders as we can. So for those who haven't been part of the last few activities, I just want you to think about some of the stakeholders that are involved in your challenge, and I want you to fill in this phrase. And for those who have already been working on some of the stakeholders up till now, I want you to use those stakeholders to finish this phrase. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I don't think you'll need 10 minutes. If you get through this quickly, then I would ask you to do a different stakeholder. So do more than one. So if you have a government agency, that's one of your stakeholders, okay, write it out for that government agency. If you have maybe a group of an NGO group, that might also be a stakeholder, write it out for that NGO group. If it's a community that's really invested and involved in the problem that you're working on, write one for them. So think about those different stakeholders. Try to be as narrow as possible, as specific. Remember the pictures that we already looked at earlier, or the pictures that we already drew and that we gathered online. Use those as kind of an anchor, as a place of starting point, but finish this phrase. I imagine that my stakeholder needs a way to, in a way that makes them feel, because blank. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'll set the timer for 10 minutes and I'll add the description of the assignment into the chat so that you have it as a reference. 10 minutes starting now. The difference between innovation and engineering is exactly this. Engineering deals with, let's go back. Engineering deals with complicated problems. Those are problems where you can look at each of the elements, diagnose each of the elements, and then solve for each one of those. They're problems that can be solved by an equation, more or less. And I'm making a generalization here, but I think it's an important generalization. Innovation deals with complex problems. That means that these problems can't be solved with a simple equation because they have too many moving parts and they're changing all the time. They're constantly adapting, self-adapting, and they're constantly self-aware as well. And so it's really important that when we work in innovation and we're taking a complex problem, that we don't try to fix everything. It's not possible to fix everything. Innovation looks at a complex problem. It identifies a very small, relatively easy to scope challenge within that problem, and it tries to solve for that challenge. And it tries to solve for that challenge in a way that benefits a specific groups of people. And so what Hazard and Kareem were discussing in the chat, and they're not wrong. Hazard or Kareem, I want to be clear with you. Your stakeholders very well may be government officials. You can describe them as government officials and logistic partners. They could very well be logistic partners. But I want to challenge you guys, and this goes for all the teams, to be as precise as possible, to be as clear as possible. So when you're thinking of something broad and general like government officials, that's just like saying the entire government. That's a big stakeholder group. I don't believe that you were thinking about all government officials. I believe that you were probably thinking about a very specific kind of government official, but you didn't know quite how to put it into words. So I want you to think about those things. I want you to narrow. You can never be too narrow. Unless you're on an individual level, you cannot be too narrow. So if you're thinking about a country, think about a city. If you're thinking about a city, think about a neighborhood. If you're thinking about a neighborhood, think about a block. All right, get small, get precise. If you're thinking about the government, think about a ministry. If you're thinking about a ministry, think down to the department level. If you're thinking at the department level, think about down to the unit level. If you're thinking about an entire commerce industry in a country, think about a specific industry that you want to deal with. If you're working within an industry, think about a group, like a smaller group of organizations. Try to characterize them in some common way. And if you're thinking even of a group of organizations, you can go down to a specific company if you want, if that's relevant for you, the challenge you're trying to solve. So be as precise as possible. I often have entrepreneurs who come to me and I ask them, okay, who are you marketing your product to? And they say, everyone. And I say, no, that's not how innovation works. You don't market to everyone. You market to the smallest possible population and you expand from there. Because if you can get an innovation to work, if you can bring value to someone's life on a very, very small and local level, it's easier to expand out than it is to take a general, ambiguous, vague, vanilla solution and try to make it work for everybody. It never will. And this is why also I kind of challenged you guys and pushed you a little bit on Friday to think about the problems that you're trying to solve, because a lot of you had ideas for solutions that I couldn't see a good connection to a problem. And that's the first step. That's not even getting into, is that solution valuable for the people who are experiencing that problem? And that's the heart of innovation. That's what you have to drive to. That's what we have to get to. So this is why it was important for us to work on this exercise around, what do our stakeholders need? And what are they going to feel whenever they get that need met? And why do they feel that way? So let's just take a social media app as our potential solution, right? So we could say that I imagine that my stakeholder needs a way to send pictures to their grandparents, right? This is something I used to do when my grandparents were alive, but now I send them to my parents. I send pictures to my parents and I say, hey, look at this picture. It looks lovely. It's me, out doing something fun. So I need to be able to send my parents pictures in a way that makes them feel connected to me and my life, because it's important for our family to feel connected, right? So that's just an easy, simple example. And we could use maybe a social network would kind of work as a solution. It could also be just a messaging app would work as a solution. But there's also a lot of other potential solutions that we could imagine in this process. There's no one size fits all in innovation. The only innovations, the only true innovations are one size fits one. So please, please, please think critically about your stakeholder groups. Think critically about your solutions. Just because you have a solution doesn't mean that's what you're going to stick with the whole time. Remember, innovation is a cyclical process. You're always going to be revisiting. What is your problem? What are you trying to solve? Who benefits from having that problem solved? What kind of solution could you come up with that would work? Go back. Is this still working for the problem? Go back. Are our groups still clear? Are our target groups still clear in terms of what they need, what they want? Go back to solution. How can we tweak our solution to now work for that group? Back to problem, stakeholder, solution. A million times. You're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to constantly do that. Basically, the way innovation works is you run that cycle and you continue to run it until you're finished. And finished means that you have a successful business or you have a new product that you can use to impact the world around you until you've made that change. But chances are, even once you've made that change, there's going to be a whole bunch of new problems that are going to crop up that you're going to be interested in, that you're going to want to solve. Anyways, I digress. Stakeholders are very important to understanding your solution. Now, I'm going to kind of skip a step here because I know you guys already have some solutions in mind. So I don't want you to necessarily get hung up on designing 100 different solutions. We're going to move pretty quickly now into creating a pitch deck. We're going to create basically just a pitch. You got about 30 minutes. That should be more than enough time. Now, when I talk about creating a pitch, what I want you to be able to articulate, what I want you to be able to present, how I want you to be able to speak is, why is your solution relevant? And this gets into the problem. So what is the problem that you're going to solve? Then how does your solution create value? This comes back to the stakeholders, the people who are going to benefit from your solution. How is it making their lives better, making their lives different? And in what? This we haven't worked on as much. So you're going to have this as kind of homework to take on. But what does your solution do? What are the key functions and features of your solution? Now I have down here 20, 30, 50. That's because whenever you talk about your work, whenever you pitch your innovation, I want you to spend 20% of the time or space, whether you were writing a text, if you're writing a piece of text, or if you're writing, making a video, or if you're presenting live, I want you to spend 20% of the time on the why, 30% on the how, and 50% on the what. So the majority of the time you spend presenting your solution is going to be on what the solution actually is. But the problem that a lot of innovators come into is they switch it around. So they start by talking about the what. And so they'll be presenting to maybe a government minister, and they'll say, we're using the latest blockchain technology to make smart contracts. And it's like keyword, 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 and then a whole bunch of technical jargon. By that time, the minister or the government officials that are listening, they're already switched off. They already don't care. But if you start with why, you're immediately going to connect to your audience, because now you're talking about their problems. Okay. So you know that you have a problem with transparency when it comes to importing goods and services, when it comes to importing products. You know, you government officials know that this is a problem. Our solution creates transparency by enabling us to track the goods that are coming into the country and then where they go to. And then spend that last half on what. So what is specific about this new technology that allows us to do all of that, that allows us to fulfill the how. Okay, hoping this makes sense, but what we're going to do is take it a piece by piece so you get everything that you could possibly think of. So we're going to do individual assignment first in 5 minutes. Actually, these are going to be a series of individual assignments, so hang tight. 5 minutes, I want you to write 2 sentences that describe why your solution is relevant. These 2 sentences should focus on the problem. Don't tell me about the solution. Don't tell me about the product. Tell me about the problem. Why is your solution relevant? 2 sentences focusing in on the problem. Ready, set, go. All right, folks, we're going to move on to the next activity. I want you to write down now 3 sentences that describe how your solution creates value for your stakeholders. And this is part of what's called your value proposition. So I want you to think about that really, really critically. 3 sentences about how your solution creates value for your stakeholders. I'll give you 10 minutes for this one. So write 3 sentences that describe how your solution creates value for your stakeholders. Remember, we're not talking about what the solution is yet. We're only talking about how it creates value. And this is part of what's called your value proposition. 10 minutes, go. Time. Yes, you did the three sentences about how your solution creates value. Is that right? I've lost track of where we were at. I'm sorry. Have we done the 5 sentences about your solution yet? Somebody tell me yes or no, please. Not yet. Great. Then that's what we're doing next. Fantastic. I wasn't sure if we had done it because I actually just did this lesson for my master's students today. So I'm just terribly confused. All right, great. So you have now 2 sentences that describe why your solution is relevant, that really get into the problem that you're trying to solve. You should have 3 sentences about how your solution creates value for the individuals who have a stake in your work. And now we're going to get into the what. Okay, write down 5 sentences that describe what your solution can do. You can focus now on the solution. If you don't have a fully formed solution yet, that's okay. Talk about 5 things that your solution could do. Talk about 5 ways that it could actually create that value. Let me know if this makes sense. If it doesn't, I can go into more detail. Otherwise, I'm going to set that timer for 15 minutes. I'm going to give you that time to do it. Then we're going to get together in our groups and we're going to talk about those pitches. We're really going to critically analyze them. Are we clear? Makes sense. Awesome. Thank you, Isaiah. Beautiful. 15 minutes starting now. I'll put the text in the chat so you have it there. Stakeholder, problem, solution, stakeholder. More or less, stakeholder, I say, is validation. So problem, solution, validation, problem, solution, validation. Take 5 minutes, break you into teams. We'll come back into the main room and then we can go from there. We can close from there. I see we don't have anybody else in room 2 other than Dennis. So maybe Karim, could you and Elliot maybe join Dennis in room 2? That way you guys have something to discuss, something to exchange. That would be nice. Great. Good work. Kareem, can you please join group 2, room 2, please? In 4 short days, you should have gone from trying to understand better your problem to validating whether or not that problem exists as you imagine it, to understanding a little bit more about the perspectives of the people who matter, who are at the heart of that problem, all the way to beginning to craft an idea of a solution and pitching that solution. It was very fast. 4 hours is what we spent together, not including the time you spent over the weekend, hopefully validating that problem. The journey has just begun. I want to offer myself to you as a resource at any point in time. If you want to discuss your ideas, if you want to check in, if you want to ask questions, I'm here. I see Yvonne is on the line too, and I'm sure he would offer his support as well. All of the work that we've done today and on Friday can be directly fed into Vibrant Creator, and you can go the rest of the way with Vibrant Creator. It'll take you all the way to the point where of investment, basically, so of a successful business. Thank you, Alan, for taking the time to allow me to connect with you all. Any final words?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for taking time to give us this interesting workshop. It has been really helpful for us as like Wengi Web and even the participants, even those who could not join the call. I know when they get to look at the recordings, they will be able to learn more. So I think now I'd encourage everyone to fill out the information that we had today on Vibrant Creator. Then we can now proceed to actually implement these solutions. By writing software or something like that over the coming week.
Awesome, I love it. And if anybody wants to connect with me online, my social media is at my website. And I'm pretty much Dr. Anthony on almost every platform. So add me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I'm Dr. Anthony G on all of them. All right, folks. Have a great evening, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.